Hey everybody, welcome back to watchNcarry. We've got another customer mod for you today. This particular one is on Andrew's GShock. The model here on the top right corner there is the GX56MF. Very cool watch. Customer finds it a little bit hard to read because of the negative display. Negative meaning you have that black background with the lighter colored numerals. So he'd like me to convert this to a positive display first, show him some pictures of how that looks, and if he'd like to keep it that way, we'll go ahead and mail that back to him. If not, he's considering adding a couple of colored filters to match the yellow and the purple or pink, the yellow and the green accents on this watch. So specifically, he may want to have a yellow here on the top window and a green here on the bottom. But we'll see how he likes the positive first. So to start work on this watch, we're going to disassemble the strap just to get better access to the back. Make sure you have a nice soft surface to work on. The bezel on this particular watch is nice and raised, so we don't have to worry about scratching that mineral glass. And for this particular strap, we do not have spring bars to worry about. We have a couple of screws here on the sides where my fingers are pointing, and then the same on here. So you're just going to take a small Phillips, and I've loosened the other three already just to speed things up. This is the fourth one here. Now it's not going to come all the way out. It's still going to be a little snug in there, so you can either use your fingers or take a pair of metal tweezers. And there is a little bit of knurling, a little bit of grooves here on the outside edge of that screw. So you can just go ahead and use your tweezers to pull that out. There you go. So there are your four for the strap. And then what you'll do is you just lift up on the strap and it should come off. It's nice to have a separate space. So here's a little work mat that I'm using. And right here is a grid that I use to store all my screws, usually from left to right or the other way around. That way when it comes time to reassemble the watch, everything has its own place. I'll put the link to this mat in the description. I got it off of AliExpress. Okay, and as I disassemble this watch, I'm also going to lay down my parts. Let's zoom out a little bit here from left to right. So again, I'm going to do that so that way when we reassemble, it'll be easier for you guys to follow along. We're going to go from right to left. Okay, next part is we have this shroud here on the back that's also holding down the case back there. So take the same Phillips. See if I can get that in focus. There we go. And we'll set these guys off to the same area as well. That's what those look like. Take a guitar pick here and just gently lift up. Oh, actually, let's not lift up. I forgot. We've got one more screw here and another one on the opposite end. That's the last two that's holding down the shroud. So this is the third set of screws that we've removed so far. Each one of these has a different length. So it's going to be easy to identify which one goes where. You don't have to worry about mixing them up. And that's what that one looks like. Okay, so there is a look at all of our screws there on the top left corner. Okay, now let's go ahead and remove this shroud. This is the rear of the shroud that's coming off. It's just basically a resin or plastic case. And then the front is also a shroud, this other part. So underneath that is the actual case. So here you can see the case back is already loose. It's kind of jiggling there. What I want to do is lift carefully up on one half and inspect that O-ring and make sure that it's either sticking all the way to the case or to the case back. If the O-ring is sticking halfway between the case back and the case, you don't want to just lift this off right away because you'll stretch the O-ring and it'll make it very difficult, if not impossible, to put back into its trough there. So in this case, it's stuck to the back of the case, which is fine. I'm just going to separate that now with the guitar pick again, just gently. I'm not pulling on it. And I'm separating it here because we're going to clean this up and re-lubricate this before installing it back for the customer. And there's your case back. That's the speaker, by the way, if you were curious. It gives you the alarm for the sound and the pushers. Okay, now we have some internal parts here. You have this white plastic piece. You can go ahead and separate that out. You have this rubber piece here. Take note of landmarks every time you're working, every time you're removing things. So this one has these little nubs here that I'm gripping onto on one side, and on the other side it's pretty flat. So you know that those nubs are going to be facing you when we reassemble. I'm going to take a spring bar tool here, and this is the 6, that's the 12. You can go to either position and just gently lift up on your module. So the module is what I'm holding here in my hand. This is the shroud on the outside, and underneath that shroud is the case. Now this part here in black that kind of divides up the display, that's called the masking. So just a little bit of anatomy there for you. Okay, now what I'm going to do is set the module off to the side. Actually, no, we're going to do positive first, and then we'll ask him if he wants the filter. So usually what I do at this point is start working with the filters, but since I need to wait for his approval on that, we'll go right into the module and convert this into a positive. Okay, so let's push this work mat up just a little bit. Now, once I start working with the module, I like to add a microfiber cloth that is a good contrast. So I like to work with blue. The reason is, as you disassemble this, sometimes, not on all G-Shocks, but I know on this particular model, there are springs that fall out. They can be a little bit hard to find, especially if you're working on a wooden surface where the wood really matches well with the springs. So having a cloth not only allows it to show you where those springs and other parts are, but it also provides a little bit of rolling resistance so things don't fall off of your table. So to get the module broken down, we're going to take a spring bar tool again, and you have these little clips here on the side. So one there, and they're all the way around this module. So I'm going to just start by pushing down on those clips and just separating them. See if I can get a little bit closer for you for one of these, so that way you know what to do for the rest. So you see the clip right there? I'm just sticking my spring bar tool and separating it like that. And then I'm going to go to the next one here and do the same thing. There's another one here. Now, as you keep doing this, the display will start to fade, flicker, and finally go blank because you are essentially disassembling the battery from the rest of the module. So there's the display disappearing a bit. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and lift up on here. Okay, so right away we've got these two springs. Okay, those have to do with the solar charging. So I'm immediately going to set those right next to my screws from earlier. Just keep track of everything. Okay, flip this guy over. Now, some landmarks again. I noticed that the circuit board has this black square facing towards me when I opened it up, so I need to make note of that when I'm reassembling. Let's lift up on the circuit board here, see if there's anything we have to worry on the back. So nothing loose over there. And how about over here? Sometimes you'll have a spring that is silver colored that activates the or that produces the sound, or transmits the sound, I should say, from the circuit board to the case back where the speaker is. So no spring on here, so I'm going to put these two parts back together the way I found them and set them together off to the side. And just a little zoom out so you can see what are the parts so far that I have removed from the watch. This white piece of paper, by the way, is just a little added protection so I don't get oil on the cloth below. Okay, so now we have the display here. Okay, so no other springs. Sometimes what will happen on a different type of GShock is you'll have 4 springs that are very small, smaller than the gold ones that I just removed earlier. Those ones are very, very easy to lose, so just take note of that if you are following this video but doing it with a different model GShock. So I think at this point it's safe to separate this center part from the white plastic housing around the sides. So I'll take something soft underneath here and just push down gently on that display from underneath. Okay, might need to help this one a little bit, so I'll take a guitar pick here to the side. Okay, we can just lift up like that. Okay, so there's this part here. So take note of this. When we remove this, we have a white part on top, and then you have a separate clear part underneath that. See if I can show that to you. Because sometimes when people disassemble things, they don't all come out neatly like this one. Sometimes the white part will fall out. So anyways, you can see that there's a separate layer for this white. So just make sure that you know that. And then for this clear plastic part that I'm working with, the plastic here on the top has an edge, and on the other side it does not. So the part with the edge was actually facing me when I removed it from the other parts over here. So we'll set that off to the side as well. Okay, we have these two parts right here. They are the same exact length, and set those off. And then now we have the display underneath. I think now I can push gently with this and it should come up. Okay, this one's a little bit more stuck than usual, so we'll go back to the guitar pick, see if we can help this one out a bit. Yeah, this one is unusually stuck on. So I'm going to put this little piece here at the bottom to push from the bottom and then help it with the guitar pick on the top. We'll see if that helps. Not using a lot of force here. These marks on the display, by the way, from the silicone spacer here I'm using, I don't have to worry about that. They're not permanent, but also this top layer is being removed and discarded and being replaced with a positive filter. So that part doesn't matter if I mark up a little bit. Okay, yeah, there's nothing else I can see that's really holding this in place. Let's try again here from a different part of the bottom. Let's see if that helps. Okay. Just going to try to push it with my fingers. There we go. That did it. So just had to apply a little bit more force, but I used the whole pad of my thumb, so I distributed the pressure a little bit more widely. I think that was a safer way to do that. Let's do that again. There we go. Yeah, that is the most stuck-on display I've had for this exact model that I've worked on. This is, I think, the fourth one that I've done. Okay, so you can see when we remove the display, this is again the orientation that I found myself working on it with. Take note that these black foam pieces are there at the 9 and 6 o'clock position from this viewpoint. So we'll set that to the side, and then now you have your display here. So we'll take a zoom out again to take a look at the parts we're working with. Okay, and back into the display. Now, this looks like one piece, but it's actually sandwiched. So it's, for simplicity's sake, it's best to think of this as made up of 3 different layers pressed together. So I'm going to use my fingers to represent those 3 layers. So you're looking at the display right now from this orientation. If I flip this to the side, this is the orientation I'm going to have my fingers on. So you have 1, 2, and 3. This finger right here is going to represent this top layer. This is called polarizing film. If you orient polarizing film in a certain direction, you get this negative effect where you have black backgrounds with light numerals. If you were to take the exact same polarizing film and move it 90 degrees to the left or to the right, you get a positive effect. So it's going to be, it just depends on the orientation. So what we're going to be doing in this mod is I'm going to put a little bit of glue on here at the tip because this layer is glued to this layer with lots of glue underneath. Put a little bit of glue on that's going to loosen the glue enough for me to wedge my guitar pick underneath. This guitar pick is made out of plastic, so it won't be harming anything else. Then I'm going to glide this pick all the way the length of the display and separate out that factory polarizing film. Then what I'm going to do is clean up all the glue underneath here. Take a brand new polarizing film. I can't use the old one because the old one has too much glue that cannot be removed. Take a new polarizing film, orient it 90 degrees opposite of the one that I removed to get the positive effect, and push it down. And that's how we're going to get our positive display and then reassemble. Okay, so because Goo Gone is a liquid, I'm going to shift here to working with a microfiber towel instead of a cloth. Okay, so I have a bowl here of Goo Gone. There are people that use other stuff as well, but Goo Gone is what I tend to use. And we're going to take just a Q-tip here, soak it, and then apply just to the edges the Goo Gone. Okay, we'll let that sit for a few minutes and then come back. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes here. I'm now going to take my guitar pick. It's got a little bit of Goo Gone on it as well. And go to any of these edges here, and you're going to try to find, again, that free edge here to stick your guitar pick. So how do you find this edge? Because everything really looks sandwiched together. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your pick, you're going to glide it over the top of that polarizing film and listen and feel for it to drop to that middle layer. And then once you feel that and you hear that, you can stick your pick into that layer and be confident that you're separating the polarizing film. So let me show you what that sounds like here. I'm going to glide my pick. Can you hear that? I'm going to turn off my fan here. Okay, so that's me jumping down to that layer. So okay, and then I'm just going to keep my pick as parallel as possible and try to just bite into that polarizing film I'm being gentle, but I'm being firm here with the amount of pressure I'm putting. So this edge is not really biting very well. So I'm going to go to another edge. That's just sometimes how it goes. See if I can catch this one. That one's pretty stuck too. Let's try this one. Nope. No luck. Let me try this one. This is usually the good luck side that I have here. Let's try this one more time. Okay, so that one's not going. So this is 50-50 for me. Sometimes I catch that edge with the guitar pick, sometimes I don't. So if you don't, you'll have to move to something a little bit more firm, like a hobby knife. Now, a hobby knife, for obvious reasons, is going to be a little bit more dangerous because as we're cutting in this direction, our fingers are here. So what I would recommend you do is curl your fingers so it's just your nails facing the blade. You're going to take the blade, keep it as horizontal as possible, and we're not looking to guide the blade the whole length of the display. I just want to get enough of an edge to bubble up on this polarizing film. And then once that little edge bubbles up, I'm going to switch back to my pick to finish it off. So we're going to curl our fingers. I'm going to tuck my thumb behind my fingers so my thumb doesn't get stuck as well. If you don't feel confident with this, like it's already freaking out in your mind, stick with the guitar pick. Maybe you can shave the edge of the guitar pick a little bit finer. Don't go to a knife if you're already feeling nervous about it. There we go. So let me show you that. Oh, it's going to be hard to see unless I put the pick there. So I made a tiny air bubble with the knife, and the pick will bring that out. Let me see if I can grab that for you. Oh, I thought I had it. Let me go back to the knife here. There we go. See that air bubble? So now what I'll do is soak my pick again in Goo Gone and just guide this the rest of the way. Okay, like so. So it's best to put the display on a flat surface rather than holding it in your hand, because as you hold it in your hand, you might be flexing the display with your other fingers. So just keep it on the towel and then just guide this pick from one side to the other. If you can get it off in one motion, that would be great. So there's the factory polarizing film. So let me show you what I mean. This is not a positive, by the way. If I was to reassemble the watch, like clean this up and reassemble, you wouldn't see anything. You need to have a polarizing film to see something. So this is how it comes from the factory. In this case, Casio decided to take a polarizing film here on the left and make it negative. So they cut this in a certain orientation when it was dark. Had Casio decided to cut this in a different orientation by rotating it 90 degrees to the left, they would have had positive, or 90 degrees to the right, you would have had positive again. So depending on the orientation of this polarizing film, you get negative or positive. Now, this is the other reason I can't use this film. Even if I could clean the glue and I orient it positively, you can see that the shape this way is not going to cover the entire display when it's reassembled. So we need to get a new one. So this one you can actually just toss. You don't need to keep that. We'll set our pick off to the side. Make sure you clear your blade to a safe area as well if you had to use it. Now I'm going to take the Q-tip again with Goo Gone, and this time I'm just going to lightly dab the entire display with it. And I'm going to let this sit for another 10 minutes, let the chemical do its thing, and then we'll come in with some mechanical movement with the Q-tip to try to loosen it up. So you're working with both chemical, the glue gun, and mechanical, the Q-tip and the rubbing motion. Okay, we'll check back in 10 minutes. Okay, it's been about 10 minutes here. Take your Q-tip, soak with glue gun again. And now we're going to do some circular movements here to just loosen up that glue. Once you feel that you've kind of covered the whole display, you can move to trying to rub off that glue with a separate towel. So let me bring that in here. Clean microfiber cloth again, and now I'm just going to rub away that glue gun and the glue from the display. Keep it on a flat surface again, because you're pressing down on the display. You don't want to hold this in your hand while doing this because you'll flex it. Okay, and then once you feel like you've gotten a lot of that area dried, go ahead and have some good bright light up ahead of you, up above you, and rotate this display in the light. And what you're checking for is any remaining glue that's on the display. So I don't know if I can pick this up. This one was actually really good. Usually this takes me about 10 minutes to get it this clean of the glue. In this case, I have almost 90% of it done, but you can see here, there, in a certain light, do you see how there's that little bit of glue where my toothpick is there? It's pretty clean all over here, and again, right there, you see that little sliver of glue? So that tells me I need to go back over it again with the Q-tip. I'll just do the whole thing again. Circular motions here. Keep wetting your Q-tip, and then let's try to dry this off. I'll rotate my towel, get a new edge here that's clean. Okay, and let's take a look at this one again. Okay, that one on the bottom is gone. I have just a little bit here. I don't think you can see it on camera, but I can see it in person, just a little bit here in that other spot. So this is all it is. You're just, applying Goo Gone, rubbing it a little bit with a Q-tip, and then rubbing it out with a towel till it's dry, checking for glue. Repeat again if there's glue. If not, then we're going to move to the next step here shortly. So just be patient with this. There's really no set time on how long this takes. I've had it as long as 25 minutes on a non-GShock Casio, the world time with that world map. I had one that took me 25 minutes. Even me just letting the Goo Gone sit on there didn't really help. It just really needed a lot of time and a lot of Goo Gone. In this case, I think within one or two passes, I was almost 90% done with this one. So it just depends on which one you have. Again, I'm working with a microfiber cloth here, not, a towel, because I don't want to have any visible scratches on this display. Okay, shift the towel again. and I'm just grabbing this display by the edges here. I'm not putting my fingers on the top part of it. Okay, let's take a look. Okay, perfect. That looks great. One more pass to get as much of that glue gun off as possible. Perfect, and then we'll set this off to the side. Go back to our dry cloth here, and now we will go into reassembly of the watch. Before you do that, go ahead and wash your hands because the glue gun is quite viscous, so it kind of stays on your fingers. I'll be right back. Okay, so now let's reassemble the module. So let's get our parts here. We are going to go now from right to left here. So we'll be using this part here, these two thin pieces, and this part. So grab those. Okay, we're going to start with this part here. You'll notice that it is flat, relatively flat on one side, and on the other side you have these plastic protrusions. So the plastic protrusions should be facing you right now, and then the two foam black pieces should be at your 9 and 7 o'clock respectively. Okay, so take those in. We're going to take our display here. Make sure that the blue box is there at the top. We're going to flip this guy over and then put this in. You're going to insert this touching the black foam pieces first, so it's flat on this side and raised on this side. I don't know if you can see that. So I want to push the display onto the sides of those black foam pieces first, and once they make contact, I can push down on the rest of the display. I do it this way so that way, because if I just laid the display flat, it's going to actually start peeling away at the those black foam pieces. Okay, go ahead and I have an air duster here. Just giving this a light clean for now, so that looks pretty good. Next, you're going to take this part, make sure that the white part is facing you. Okay, I guess it looks white on this side too, but this is more of a matte white, this is more of a shiny white. And again, the plastic housing here, that's clear, it has edges on one side and it's smooth on the other. You want the edges facing you. So this one you can just go ahead and lay down in any direction. You don't have to do it as uniquely as the piece underneath it. And then that just sits loosely there on top. We're going to take these two pieces here. You're going to insert them along their thin edge. So we're not going to be putting them down this way. We're going to be putting them down this way. And there's a little slot created by that last piece we installed on the top there. And then you're going to do the same thing for the bottom. Make sure the edges of those white pieces are really clean, because even a little bit of debris can cause a malfunction in the display. Okay, so just like that. Now we had these two springs, these two gold springs that came off when we disassembled this part, so we're going to take those now. The gold springs themselves are specific with how you insert them, so let me try to show that to you. I think I have to bring this up to the camera. There we go. So you'll notice how this end of the spring is a little bit wider and then it gets a little bit thinner towards that edge. So the thin side is the part that you're going to want to insert first. So right now I'm grabbing this by the wider end of the spring. Okay, like so. And then I'm inserting this thinner part down into that part of the watch. Okay, then we're going to repeat for the other one. Okay, so right now those two springs are kind of popping up towards you. You're going to take this part next. Okay, and you want to orient this with the black part of the circuit board facing you here, and these two gold contacts at the bottom at the 6, because those contacts are going to touch these two springs over here. So I'm actually going to put a little spacer here on the bottom of this part, just so that the springs now kind of fall down into their holes. They're not popping up, because then when I sandwich these two parts together, I don't want to bend those springs. So now that the springs are sitting flush with their housing here, I can take this part and we can do this one at a time. So we'll take this, we'll flip this over so the black square is no longer facing us, and we can insert that onto that part. There will be these little white nubs here on that side and that side that line up with these pre-cut parts of the circuit board. And you can take this part, and if it's separated from the cage underneath it, just make sure that you have this tab in this orientation. Okay, and then we're going to flip it over so that way the battery door is facing us now with the notification there, and then that part can go on top. Okay, there will be a little cutout here for a square piece underneath to go through, so that's how you align that. Then you take this cage here, make sure that the flat part of that cage is facing up, flip it over so now you're on the flat side, and then you're going to push this all around. You're going to push this down, and then you're going to line up the cage part with those little white tabs that you pried apart at the beginning with the spring bar tool to separate everything. Once everything is lined up, you can just hold the display like this with one hand, and then just carefully use your other two fingers to pinch and close those clips, and you'll hear and feel them close as you work your way around the entire module. Okay, be careful of those two springs that are poking up there at the bottom. You don't want to press those with your finger, just the clip around them. Okay, so that looks pretty good. So now we're going to give a visual inspection here of each clip. So there, I want to make sure that the white plastic part is completely covered by the clip of the silver part. And then here as well. There we go. That one was a little bit loose. That one looks good. Looks good. And looks good. So right now the battery is touching the watch module, and you'll see that we don't have anything on the display because, again, we don't have a polarizing film, right? So let me just show you what happens. I'm going to reset this really quick, and I'm going to explain what I'm doing later on in the video, but you have to do an all clear every time you separate the battery or change out the battery. Okay, so display is blank. I'm going to take a new polarizing film over here. That's this one. This is linear polarizing film, non-adhesive, so it's made of 3 layers as well. You have the polarizing film in the middle, and then a protective layer on one side and another protective layer on the other side. So as we glide our polarizing film over the display, you'll see that we have it showing up. And so in this orientation, it's positive. In this orientation, it's negative. So this is what I mean by at the factory, it's just all about the orientation. This also tells you that this mod is reversible. So if the customer at some point says, you know what, I want to go back to negative, he can send it back to me, and I can go ahead and just do the same thing and turn it back. Okay. Now there are some colors in this particular case because the display itself from the factory has this blue, pink, green and another blue here at the bottom, so it's pretty cool. So with the positive, those colors are going to come out. With the negative, we weren't seeing any of those. Okay. Okay, so now what we're going to do is cut the factory polarizing film and adhere it to the inside of the case. One other thing to note with your polarizing film is that it does matter which side you're on, so this side versus that side. So let me show you why. This is the correct side. We have positive and we have negative. No matter how we rotate it, you only get two colors. So that's how you know you're on the correct side. If you're on a different side, you start seeing these gradient colors. You see there's like rainbowish colors there. Now we have purples and greens. You can still cut the filter like this and it will work, but it won't be as crisp for negative if that's what you're going for, or as crisp for positive. Okay, there will always be a little bit of a gradient in the color. It is actually a cool effect, and if that's what you want to do, you can play around with your polarizing film and cut different orientations that you'd like. For this customer, he wants to just keep it positive, so I know that I need to be in this orientation. So what you'll do is you'll rotate this till you start getting lighter, and then wait for it to just go back to black again, right there. So that way we know we have to kind of find the middle ground where that's going to be, and it looks like that is in this orientation. So a little bit of reflection with my headlamp here, that's why it doesn't look as crisp to you. But once I cut this out, I'll show you what I mean. So this is the orientation I need to be in. So we'll set this off to the side. Take my case down. Now this particular masking on the inside, again, the masking is this black part that's dividing the screen. I don't think I can separate this. Somebody said I could, but I've never... Actually, you know what? I think they're right. Because ideally what I would do at this point is try to like trace this from the outside of the case just to get the correct shape. But obviously if I could remove this part from the watch and trace over that, it would be a lot quicker. So just taking a toothpick here, let me see if I can lift up on this. So the masking doesn't pull up, but maybe this bumper guard here can be pulled up. I'm not going to use a lot of force here, just a little bit. Oh, they're right. I think you can. Okay, so here's the problem. There's this bumper guard here, right here, that runs the perimeter. So I can actually lift this up. You can see me just starting to lift up on that bumper. You see that it's coming off, but it's actually hitting the stem here of the pusher. So if I want to remove this whole part, I actually have to disassemble this pusher, which would mean having to push this C-clip out, removing the button, and then reinserting it back. That for me is just too much work, and then again you are messing a little bit with the seals of the O-rings in here, which is fine if you relubricate it, but why mess with something that's already working? So for me it's just not enough of a time saver for me to do this to warrant disassembling the entire watch. And of course I would have to ask the customer if they're comfortable with me doing this, because I've already explained to them exactly what I'm doing in terms of disassembly, and if I want to do anything further I'm going to have to wait to get their approval. So you can still do it without removing. Go with it whichever way you want. For me, I'm going to do it the way that I've always been doing it. But good to know. The person who pointed it out to me in the last video is absolutely correct. You can disassemble the entire masking, get it out, and have a much easier time tracing. So what I'm going to do is just put my polarizing film over this. Take a thin-tipped Sharpie and just kind of eyeball it where I need to go. It doesn't have to be perfect off the bat, because we can always trim this down. Okay, now this is the back of the polarizing film, so I'm going to write B there, so that tells me that this goes to the back. Flip this guy back over, and we will cut this shape out. See how close we get on the first try. Again, this polarizing film has a protective layer on the top and on the front and the back, which is why I don't have a problem putting my fingers on the front or back of this film right now. Okay, so there's our film. Let's go ahead and see how that looks. So you want this to obviously fit on the inside, but you don't want it to be propped up on one lip of the masking and then flat on the other, because if it's not sitting flush down when we reassemble the watch, the customer is going to notice that they will notice the reflection of sunlight or artificial light hitting the display, and they'll be able to see that that's uneven. So right now this is sitting pretty flush here on the top and on the bottom. You see there's a little bit of a lip here on the inside, but here on the left and the right, it's riding on top of that lip. So here, top and bottom, it's fine, it's sitting flat. On the left and the right, it's riding a little high. So I have to trim on the left and right sides. Just a little at a time here. Go back and try this one again. Perfect, and now this one is looking perfect. So put that to the side. Okay, now that I know I have the correct size of polarizing film, how do I stick it? If you have sticky or adhesive polarizing film, what you would do is either just stick it down here into the display, or stick it into the case itself, or stick it directly onto the display. I'm not a fan of sticking it onto the display because you have to get it right the first time. If you have any air bubbles, you can't lift up and try to get rid of that air bubble and reapply it, because this film is really, really fragile. So any lifting is going to cause it to kink and crack. So for me, it just takes too much time. It's a waste of material. I don't have the skill set to stick it onto the display. Some of you might be better than me at that. For me, it's exactly the same kind of clarity if I just go ahead and stick it into the display itself, into the case itself, and then put the module in behind that. So to stick it in here, what I'm going to do is put a little sliver of double-sided tape here and another one here at the bottom. You have these two cutouts here at the bottom, these two holes for the two springs here. That has to do with the solar charging. So we want to make sure that our film is not blocking that. And actually, let me check that again if it's blocking. I think I forgot to take that into account. Oh yeah, this one is blocking at the bottom. So I need to trim this bottom really quick. Okay, let's try this again. Okay, trim this just a little bit more. Just a tad more. Okay, it looks good. So we have our polarizing film covering the full length, but these two holes are open there at the bottom. Okay, let's go ahead and get our double-sided tape. So I'm using a brand called T-Rex. It has a white protective layer on the outside that is not sticky, and then double-sided sticky tape on the other side. I have a separate video on how to cut this tape and how to apply it in more detail. So I'll put that in the description below if you need to follow along with that. Okay, here's our double-sided tape here for the top. I'm going to put it just a little bit. So here's the free edge of the masking here. And then here's the free edge. I'm going to leave about 1 millimeter or 2 without tape, and then put the glue tape just above that. I don't want to put the glue tape directly near the free edge, because when everything gets squeezed down during reassembly, the tape might actually squeeze and move into the visible area of the display, and then the customer will be able to see that. Okay, let's apply a little bit of glue tape here to the bottom as well. Okay, then I'll do a couple more here on the corners. There we go. So that looks pretty good. Now we're going to take our polarizing film over here. And again, this one can be peeled. So let's, actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and clean the inside of this case. I have my blaster here. I'm just going to clean it from underneath. Okay, it looks pretty good. Let's take our film here. Make sure you have the orientation of that letter B in the correct orientation. So we have the front layer here on the opposite side of that B that we need to peel off and remove. Like so. And then now, to lay this down, I'm going to take my tweezers so I don't get any fingerprints on it. And I'm going to lay that polarizing film down right over the strips of glue that I cut out. And then lightly push. On any areas that have glue. Okay, then we're going to remove the polarizing film from the back of the or remove the protective film from the back of the polarizing film. So just try to grab it from one of the edges here. Be gentle with your tweezers so you don't scratch the film. Okay, so there's our film underneath. We'll give that another quick dusting off camera. Then we're going to take our module here, also dust that. And then reinsert everything. Now these stems, sometimes what will happen on other or older watches is they won't go back into place. You see how the stem pushes in? You don't want to have it in that position. All the stems should be completely retracted, otherwise the module won't fit down. So you can either just manually push those out, or if you can just visually check that they are pushed out already, then you're fine. So these ones are all pushed out. We'll go ahead and insert the module down. And then you're going to just gently pull back on these tabs here while putting a little bit of pressure with one finger. And that will allow the module to sit nice and flush with the rest of the case. Okay, then you're going to do an all clear, which we've already done. Now I don't need to do this because I've already done it, but just to show you, you're going to take a paper clip. Unless you have really thin tweezers, take a paper clip, bend it into a U, and make one end longer than the other. Then you're going to go to this hole here marked AC, and then the other end of the paper clip is going to go to this negative mark over here. So I'm going to take that, the longer end goes into the AC, and then this is going to go to the negative sign. Just hold there for a few seconds. You would also do this if you did a battery change on your watch. And that will set everything back to midnight, including the date back to January 1st. So you'll have to redo all your dates and times once that's done. Okay, then we're going to take this part that's gray. Make sure you have those little nub parts facing you. And then you'll have these two contacts come out of the cutouts on the gray part. Take the white part, set that up on the top. Okay. Now we're going to take this gentleman's, well, we're going to look here first at the trough that the O-ring sits in, make sure that's nice and clean, so that looks good. Then we're going to take our O-ring. If you have a nice glisten to your O-ring, you don't have to do this. That means it's already lubricated. Make sure, first of all, that your O-ring doesn't really have any gunk or dirt on it. Then you can take a clean Q-tip, and you're going to take 100% silicone oil. So this is the type that I'm using over here. Just wet the end of that Q-tip and then roll it around the O-ring, and then do the other side as well. Make sure that you're not stretching that O-ring while you're relubricating it. Okay, let's go back to our watch over here. Take that O-ring, gently set it down in the trough, and then guide it into there so that way it sits flush. Okay, that looks good. You're going to take your case back here. Now, this particular case back is kind of hard to clean when everything's reassembled, because remember, you have this part of the shroud that kind of covers it. So what ends up happening is you have a little bit of dirt that gets underneath there and dirties up the case back. So what I'm going to do for the customer, since I'm already here, I'm not charging him for this, is I'm going to take a little bit of rubbing alcohol and just clean up this area a little bit. Okay, so I think that looks a lot better. A few scratches here because this is a used watch and I can't remove that with the alcohol, but I think this looks much better than when we got it. Okay, so we'll clean that up. Let's go ahead and just lightly clean the inside of this one as well. Okay, now let's go ahead and reassemble this. Let's get a new cloth here. Okay, O-ring is in there. We'll take our case back. Notice the orientation of the tabs here at the 12 and the 3. And this is the orientation of the case back. We're going to press that on top, like so. Okay, and then to secure the case back, remember you have to put this shroud back on top. So you're going to take your shroud next and then push that over. And then line up the holes on the shroud with the holes of the case back. Put a little bit of pressure there, and then you can take the 4 screws here for the back to start putting this in place. Before you do that, what I'd recommend you do is just hold pressure there with the watch, flip this over, and just make sure you like everything the way it looks. If there's any dust in the display or let's say fingerprints or anything that you might have, you might want to clean that up on the inside of the watch before reassembly just to save you some time. So I'm rotating this in the light. Everything looks good. I don't see any dust underneath the display. There's a little bit of dust on the outside of the glass, which I will take care of later. I'm going to go ahead and test the functions. Again, I'm keeping pressure with my finger here on the back. So there, that tells me the stopwatch, the sound is working. You can hear it. See it do it again. Okay, the bottom left button is working because the modes were switching, so that's what that one is for. I have to test this button here on the bottom right now. That's good, and then the top left here clears the watch, and then let's test the backlight. That's just the top right button. And the backlight's working, which is great. So we have all 4 buttons working, including the sound. So now I can go ahead and reassemble this watch. Let's do the ones on the back first. I think they're a little bit easier than the ones on the side. So these are the medium length screws that you've removed from the beginning. let's go ahead and clean up the glass here on the front a little bit. Clean the rest of the case. Okay, looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and install the other screws here on the side. These are going to be the smallest screws that you've removed at the beginning. Okay, now to assemble the straps, you're going to take the watch, turn it this way, and then flip it over. The long side of the strap is going to go here. The short side of the strap is going to go here. So here's the long part first. And take your two longest screws that you've removed before. You can push fit them gently into either end. They won't fall off. Like that. And then take your driver and secure them in place. Okay, go ahead and repeat for the other side. Okay, dust this a little bit off camera. Wipe it down a bit, and let's go ahead and take a look at our work. So this is a positive display conversion on this particular model. Now, some positive displays don't have factory colors underneath, so you see that pink, the blue, and the green. This one just happened to have it. Usually when you remove the factory polarizing film and you convert it to a positive, you're just going to have a grayish white background on your display. So this one is pretty cool because it already has colors from the factory, which also means that the customer probably will like it this way. Doesn't have to pay for the additional work from me to do the colored filter additions. So I'm going to show this to him and see what he thinks. But there is a look. Yeah, really cool colors. I also like that the blue is embedded within that salmon pink on the top. And of course, I'll set the date and time to the customer's location. Also the format, whether they want 12-hour or military time format, I'll make sure to ask them that before packaging it back. But anyways, there's a look at Andrew's mod. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys have any questions, please put them down in the comments below. If you could take a look at my Instagram as well as subscribe to this channel, that would be greatly appreciated. For those of you that are interested in having a mod and getting pricing and turnaround time quotes, please message me on Instagram. That's the easiest way to find me. If for some reason you don't have Instagram, just send me a message in the comments and maybe we can connect on Facebook. Let's just wipe this edge just a little bit here. There we go. So again, thanks for watching, guys. Hope to see you on the next one. And have a great time modding. Take care.